They believed it to be another Sunday festivity. However, everything came to a halt when Lisa Paige Brooks took the stage. The audience fell silent. The choir stopped. Even Bishop J. Drew Sheared appeared utterly taken aback. Nobody anticipated this. What started out as a straightforward pastoral celebration swiftly evolved into one of the most poignant and talked-about moments in this year's gospel music. However, what actually caused this surprise? What was the reason behind the bishop's emotional response to the song "God Gets the Glory"? Watch closely because the entire Christian church family was in wonder of what transpired next. Few instances in the history of gospel music and the church community convey such genuineness and sincere worship as this one. The name Lisa Paige Brooks has struck a chord with generations of gospel fans and recently made an unexpected appearance. The entire congregation at Greater Emmanuel Institutional Church of God in Christ observed something remarkable during Bishop J. Drew Shear's pastoral celebration. This wasn't your typical guest act. It was simultaneously a spiritual experience, a reunion, a testament, and an affirmation of God's faithfulness. The atmosphere was immediately altered by Lisa's calm yet commanding entrance. The chapel was already a hive of activity. However, you could actually feel the air change as soon as God's splendor began to play. You may be asking yourself, what made this performance so noteworthy? Why was Bishop Shear's response so tearful that even seasoned churchgoers couldn't contain their tears? We're going to go right into that today, because this unexpected performance is the result of years of ministry, history, and a profound relationship that most people are unaware of. We'll learn how this momentous occasion occurred, what it meant to Bishop Shear and Lisa Paige Brooks, and why gospel lovers around the world are still discussing it in this video. The depths of friendship, faith, and history that are hidden within just one potent song will astound you. So have a seat, for as we unravel this tale, you will discover how one unexpected performance served as a reminder to everyone that God always deserves the praise. Let's go back to the beginning now. How everything came together. We must take a look back at the beginnings of gospel music in Detroit and the surrounding area to fully comprehend why Lisa Paige Brooks's unexpected performance at Bishop J. Drew Shear's pastoral celebration became such a poignant and viral occasion. Enduring relationship between these two well-respected church leaders. Lisa Paige Brooks is not your typical gospel performer. Long before the industry realized her full influence, she was a trailblazer, a pioneer, and a voice that influenced the sound of contemporary gospel. She is well known for being a part of the renowned gospel quartet Witness, a female group that ruled the 1980s and 1990s with powerful vocals and harmonies that revolutionized church music for a new generation. Lisa had a tone that was both primal and sophisticated, profoundly spiritual and musically polished. She was among the first to introduce a modern twist to the traditional church soul, making the gospel more approachable for younger listeners. Bishop J. Drew Shear, meanwhile, was establishing his own legacy. Bishop Shear was more than just a preacher. He was a man of deep pastoral care, leadership, and strong conviction. He was a visionary. He oversaw Greater Emmanuel Institutional Kojic, emphasizing quality, family, and worship. Beyond Detroit, his ministry had an impact on pastors, singers, and believers nationwide. Of course, he is also well known for being the father of one of the most significant contemporary voices in gospel music, Karakiki Shear, and the husband of gospel icon Karen Clark Shear. After years of following different ministry paths, what happens when two gospel titans, Bishop Shear and Lisa Paige Brooks, cross paths again? You are given a time that is rich in history, emotion, and divine timing. Bishop Shear and Lisa have previously crossed paths numerous times. The gospel movement in Detroit served as their spiritual upbringing. They have witnessed gospel music's development, the highs and lows of ministry, and the internal struggles that accompany bearing the burden of leadership. That's why She's Surprise was more than a haphazard act. It was a moment of complete circle, a reunion of purpose between two legends who have devoted their lives to serving God via ministry and singing. Bishop Shear's pastoral celebration was organized as a lavish affair in the run-up to the event. For weeks, church members had been getting ready. Even the bishop was unaware that someone he had known and respected for decades would deliver one of the evening's most impactful moments, despite the tributes, poignant speeches, and musical guests. To ensure that Lisa's arrival would be a total surprise, the team kept a close eye on her appearance. There were times of tears, laughter, and introspection as the ceremony went on. As people praised his leadership, his passion for ministry, and his unshakable faith over the years, Bishop Sheared listened with humility. Then, just as it appeared that the night was coming to an end, down, and the air changed. The music crew started getting ready for something as the lights went down. Though no one could have predicted who it would be, many sensed that something amazing was about to happen. That's when it occurred. The doors were opened. With her sophisticated yet modest attire, Lisa Paige Brooks entered the room with the poise and assurance that come only from years of worship experience. Everyone in the church let out a gasp. It was all in Bishop Sheared's face. He was utterly surprised. He was overcome with a mixture of astonishment, joy, and intense emotion. However, the actual moment was yet to arrive. Because when Lisa took the microphone and said, "To God be the glory," the congregation understood that something remarkable was going to happen. Stay with me, because we'll discuss the song that rocked the sanctuary, the emotional impact of her performance, and why that one line, "God gets the glory," had such a powerful impact that evening. Everything in the Greater Emmanuel Institutional Church of God in Christ changed when Lisa Paige Brooks raised the microphone. It was more than a song. It was a holy meeting. People started to cry, raise their hands, and yell as soon as the first few chords of God's grandeur filled the sanctuary, even though the assembly had already been standing. You could sense the emotion sweeping across each pew like an uncontrollable flood of worship. With years of ministry experience under her belt, Lisa's voice was rich and experienced. Her voice was steady but brimming with emotion, strong yet gentle. Each line seemed to be an oath. Each and every note appeared to recount a tale of struggles waged and triumphs achieved with faith. "God gets the glory," it seems, wasn't merely a line. They seemed to be a statement of survival, thankfulness, and direction. And Bishop J. Drew Sheared was the center of attention. Karen Clark sheared as he and his wife sat in the front row. The bishop made an effort to remain calm, but it was obvious that this incident had affected him greatly. He leaned forward, one hand over his heart, shaking his head in shock as tears welled up in his eyes. He was totally disarmed by the unexpected. Lisa's appearance wasn't the only thing. What resonated was what she decided to sing. The music selection made perfect sense to everyone who knew Bishop Sheared's story. God Gets the Glory is more than just a song, masterpiece, but it's also a declaration of faith. A reminder that God deserves all the glory and acclaim, regardless of what we accomplish. Bishop Sheared has had to manage his ministry, family, and the expectations of thousands of people who look up to him over the years. He has, however, remained unwavering and given God the glory for each triumph. That precise fact seems to be reflected in Lisa's performance. She wasn't merely performing for the audience. The bishop was receiving her care. Like a dialogue between two soldiers who had each fought their fair share of spiritual battles, each verse contained a word of encouragement. Her voice trembled occasionally, but not out of nervousness, but rather out of intense emotion. She was clearly feeling every word and relating to the message personally. The congregation was unable to contain themselves. Many people had their phones up, capturing what was fast turning into one of the most moving viral moments in gospel music this year, while others were crying and worshiping. Applause, chants of "Thank you, Jesus," and weak amens can be heard in between verses. It was an electric sound, not simply an emotional one. God is praised as Lisa made it to the chorus once more. The glory goes to God. Karen Clark stood up, clearly moved, and sheared. The occasion was made much more beautiful by the image of her standing next to her husband, raising her hands while tears were streaming down her cheeks. It was no longer merely a show. It turned into a time for family, a time for service, and a spiritual reminder that all life's phases, happy or sad, are a part of God's bigger picture. The audience exploded as the last note faded. All at once, people were cheering, clapping, and crying. Bishop let out a cry, got to his feet, approached Lisa, and gave her a firm embrace. The earnestness of that hug was evident. One strong embrace condensed years of respect for one another and a common religion. Despite the mics not picking it up, he muttered something to her that was obviously profound based on the expressions on both of their faces. The bishop then addressed the assembly, still clearly moved, and made a straightforward yet impactful statement. This moment could only have been predetermined by God. The glory belongs to Him alone. The audience echoed Lisa's sentiments as they cheered even louder. From the platform to the seats, it seemed as though the message and the song were one cohesive statement of faith. This concert was transformative for many of the people in attendance, not merely heartwarming. Later, other people expressed online how they felt simply by being in that environment, feeling motivated, healed, or spiritually rejuvenated. Fans hailed the performance as a divine appointment, a divine act, and one of the most exquisite surprises in gospel history, as clips of it swiftly went viral on social media. This is when it becomes even more profound, because this wasn't merely a coincidental appearance or a choice of song. Lisa Paige Brooks chose to sing that particular song at that particular time for a very compelling reason. You have to look past the music to see why Lisa Paige Brooks's performance of God Gets the Glory moved Bishop J. Drew Sheared and almost the entire church to tears. The history that links Lisa's personal journey with the message Bishop Sheared has preached for decades, the message weaved into each line, and the story behind the song itself must all be understood. It's not just another gospel song, God Gets the Glory. It's a declaration of belief, one that bears the burden of perseverance, modesty, and spiritual development. This song has been a pillar of Lisa Paige Brooks' ministry. She has talked candidly over the years about periods of hardship, grief, and even periods when she doubted her purpose in life. She has, however, consistently returned to one truth throughout it all. She has gone through all of this for the glory of God. Lisa's song, God Gets the Glory, is more than just a line. It's an experience-based claim. She has had difficulties in both her personal and professional lives. Her faith remained unwavering, even after her name was no longer popular. The music industry changed, and the limelight dimmed. She continued to sing, serve, and remind people that while fame comes and goes, purpose endures. Now compare that to the voyage of Bishop J. Drew Sheared. His ministry journey hasn't been simple either. There is a great deal of responsibility involved in leading one of the most powerful churches in the church, God in Christ denomination. He has endured personal assaults, criticism, and the burden of expectations throughout the years. In addition to being a community leader and a bishop, he is also the spouse of one of the most renowned performers in gospel, Karen Clark Sheared. He has, however, consistently conveyed one point throughout all of that. Every accomplishment, hardship, and triumph they experience is done for the glory of God. This explains why Lisa's song selection resonated so deeply with her. She wasn't there to sing a hit song. She arrived with a message that spoke to the core of Bishop Sheared's work. Her voice seemed to be God's way of affirming everything that the bishop had spent years teaching, that the glory never belongs to man, even when the route is lonely and the journey becomes difficult. It is God's property. Let's examine the lyrics in more detail. It's not just poetry when you read lines like, "He lifted me up, He turned me around, and when I thought it was over, He stepped right in." They are statements. They are based on actual accounts of people who have faced hardships and saw God work things out. These statements have great personal significance for Bishop Sheared, who has guided his church through periods of expansion, grief, and rebirth. They serve as a reminder to him and all onlookers that ministry isn't about fame. It has to do with faithfulness. The way Lisa performed the song also had a profound spiritual quality. She took her time. She allowed the words to linger in each verse, taking her time. She was obviously not singing to Bishop Sheared. As they sang, she asked him to consider all of the blessings, difficulties, and testimonies that had brought him to that point. It must have been just as upsetting for Karen Clark Sheared to witness her husband receiving such intimate care. Karen is aware of the demands of being a leader. She supported her spouse through good times and bad, through heartbreak and victory. It must have seemed like heavenly timing to see Lisa, a friend and fellow gospel performer, take the stage and share that message. After the performance, social media was inundated with comments and videos started to circulate online. People were discussing more than simply Lisa's vocal prowess. They discussed the anointed nature of "that was the moment." Even though they were watching on a screen, viewers reported feeling cold and crying easily. Some people talked on how the song itself brought up memories of their own testimonies. There were moments when they believed they would perish, yet God saved them. It was more than just a show. It was about making a connection. a link between a congregation, two preachers, and everyone else in the globe who needed a reminder that God is always worthy of the praise. More intriguingly, a lot of admirers remarked on how this performance's timing seemed almost prescient. The Sheared family and Lisa Paige Brooks have been candid in recent years about trusting God during times of uncertainty, particularly in the wake of personal struggles, ministry changes, and health issues. The fact that Lisa decided to sing that song right now seemed to have been orchestrated by God himself, reminding them and everyone listening that his hand is still at work in their missions and lives. And that's what makes gospel music so lovely. Under the guidance of the Spirit, it goes beyond mere performance. It turns into a moving ministry. God is praised since Lisa Paige Brooks's plan was not created by humans. The appointment was divine. Each phrase struck a chord as a reminder that the ultimate objective never changes, no matter what life throws at us, because it all serves to exalt the name of God. This is where the narrative becomes even more intriguing, though. Because of the unexpected event that followed the moving performance, it made everyone discuss even more. Bishop Sheared's remarks to his audience transformed that stirring performance into a turning point for the church. The brightness fades into quiet as God's last note is played. The sanctuary appeared to be still. There was calm awe for a few seconds, no movement, no applause. People's reactions to what they had just seen were overwhelming. With tears in her eyes, Lisa Paige Brooks lowered the microphone slowly as the musicians on stage softly ended the song. It was more than just a song's conclusion. It seemed to be the conclusion of a heavenly moment that heaven itself had planned. Everyone looked at Bishop J. Drew Sheared. He had been regarded by the church for years as a rock, a man of discipline, authority, and unshakable faith. Even during emotional services, he is renowned for maintaining his poise and for supporting people while remaining quiet. This time, however, was different. Few people get to witness the uncommon and very human side of him, but the unexpected performance had pierced that tough pastoral facade. Bishop Sheared stood slowly, taking a deep breath, his hands clenched together, tears running down his cheeks. The chapel burst into cheers and cries of gratitude. A few members got to their feet in tears. Others raised their hands in loud worship, overcome by the overwhelming sense of God's presence in the room. The spiritual weight of the situation was felt even by the younger members, who might not have been aware of the entire background of Lisa's relationship to the Sheareds. Visibly moved, the bishop turned to face Lisa and approached her on stage. Sensing that something important was going to be stated, the congregation fell silent once more. For a brief while, Lisa grasped his hand and they stood side by side. Mutual respect and divine timing brought two gospel veterans together. Bishop Sheared then spoke, his voice quivering with emotion. The church erupted in cheers and applause as soon as he remarked, "You never really know how much you've poured out until someone comes along and pours back into you." "You have no idea what this means to me tonight, Lisa," he added. "This very moment reminded me why we do what we do after all these years of ministry, all the difficulties, all the prayers, and all the late nights spent pleading with God to keep me. It's not for publicity. It's not for cheering. The purpose is to give God the praise." The church erupted once more as he spoke those words. The message of the song seemed to be echoed by the entire assembly. People started openly crying, hugging, and praying. There was only genuine worship, no script or program. As the organist started to play softly, voices all around the room started chanting the chorus, "God gets the glory," together, without any preparation or rehearsal. The identical truth that had just been sung was being repeated by a choir of Christians who were united in one voice. The glory belongs to God. The bishop hesitated for a time, too moved. Karen Clark sobbed as he turned to face his wife, who was similarly moved and stood beside him.